Hi, everybody. It is Saturday, July 11th, and wanted to touch base with you all now that we're kind of wrapping down our first round of tryouts. Everything we've kind of been working towards here at United has been to try and be a lot faster. Not everything's done yet. Obviously, we have some age groups we still need to process. We do have quite a bit of offers out to some of our players, but wanted to first get you a bunch of the things that we do here at United to answer some questions for those of you who have accepted, or thinking about it, or waiting in the wings. Today, our goal is to go through kind of what we have already for our parents, for the information as far as what we do in our schedule, what to expect here over the next couple of months, what we have for our family manual, and some of the different content things we have. So I'm going to cover those pretty quickly today. The plan is to keep this all recorded, posted on YouTube, so that way anybody can go out and then send out an informational email with both this and the upload once completed. So, going to go through this very quickly. Appreciate all of you for taking the time to watch this. As I am saying this, I'm sitting here in our office space. You can actually kind of see where I'm at in my office here if you've been back here. But we're just kind of wrapping up tryout season. So, man, it has been a blur over these last 6 days. So, first things first, we're going to kick things off and talk about kind of the initial things that we have here at United, and go through our parent meeting. So, I will be going ahead to share some of these documents with you, and kind of what's going on, but trying to keep things pretty simple from an overall slide perspective or a content piece. So I think a lot of the times people want to ask us what we do here at United, how are we involved with League One volleyball, some of those other things, and what's kind of going on in general. As we kick into year three, this is going to be new for some of you, and obviously review for some of our returners. But our biggest piece that we have is by being a part of Iowa United, we've been able to align with League One volleyball to start this club and be quite large and quite successful over these first 2 years. One of the things that we get quite a bit is what is love. And League One volleyball ultimately has kind of three major arms of we've pulled together for some of the different pieces within volleyball. The first is going to be our pro league. And so we've already expanded into different markets and how that's kind of joined. You're able to find some of that information online on their website at love.com. Additionally, there's been the thing that you see the most, and that's with us, and that is the actual club business. And so as of right now, there are publicly, I think, 97 clubs across the country in the US that are associated with League One volleyball. We are very lucky to be one of those clubs. I think there are times where there is obviously, there's a million ways to do things, but for us, the resources that they provide and being able to channel those things together have made things very, very efficient for us. It's allowed us to do some things early on, like getting invitations to Triple Crown NIT, helping us out with sponsorship things, helping out with hotels, or just the volume of things we do overall. Now, as I'm sitting in this facility, like the facility that we're actually in right now is not possible without their funding and backing, is we wouldn't have been able to make that kind of guaranteed investment locally. So there's been those things. And then now as they're shifting into the tournaments business, moving forward, even this past year, they worked with acquiring NetLinks, a company that ran a lot of tournaments out of the Midwest. Ones that we went to is JVA Unidome Challenge, and then the JVA Mizuno Midwest Challenge in Des Moines, something that we've sent our teams to. They've purchased some of those tournament companies and tried to really make sure that they have a good experience for any of the players attending, whether they're love athletes or not. So we really love that, and that kind of whole one singular system for them to kind of bounce things off of ultimately has kind of reduced costs for some of our families for attending those things and streamline the process for us to have a lot more power behind the resources we have. One of the big things with love that we've seen for a lot of the athletes has been some of the standardization of things that come through here. And, whether it's been here at Iowa United, other clubs around the country, obviously here in Iowa, we have more budget conscious families than some of the insane expenditures that we have in the markets of Dallas, Houston, LA, Chicago, things like that. But even though we've really opened up the ability to get kids a similar amount of resources and standards that maybe places around here just haven't been able to do. And so we really love that we've been able to lean into some of their resources and the things that they're doing. That for me has been a really big portion of what we're trying to pay attention to. And then kind of shifting into what we do here at United and the separation of that of League One volleyball will always dictate to us some of the standardization of things. So what we do from a legal and compliance standpoint, what we're doing from accounting standpoints, things like that. But once we get to the volleyball things, they have really empowered us to be aggressive with trying to pursue the way we want to shape it. And so different League One clubs, love clubs, have different opportunities to do things their way. For us, we've really adopted some of my phrasing, obviously, is under the leadership here, but also some of the stuff that I've basically just taken from the people that I've learned from over the years. And the biggest one for that is one way. When I was lucky enough to join Baylor in 2019 into 2020, We were the number one team in the country, and getting there and trying to find a way to be a part of that culture. The expectation was to join the culture and add to it, not change it. And I really enjoyed that piece, and it's something I've tried to bring back here to United. And so whether this goes to our staff, new staff members, coaches, new or returning, and players and families in the same bit, we're asking them to contribute to our culture by being a part of it and leaning into it. What we're really trying to do as well is aggressively molding people into that versus having them mold the culture away from that. And if those players aren't going to follow that, then or families or coaches, etc., we are really aggressively trying to move on from them. It is a big, big focus of what we are able to do today and why we've been successful thus far. So for us, there are some behaviors that we think are exceptional. And the ones we were trying to quantify, we also think that there are some very disgusting behaviors that we see of people that put me over we, people that, really try to tear a team apart or make it about them rather than the group as a whole. And so trying to find some of those timeless principles that we really believe in, I hope it transcends just something as small as a single season of volleyball or frankly, several of club volleyball. And hopefully the families, the athletes, and the coaches take that away from them as something for life. One of the things we also try to do is we really have very strict and specific expectations and definitions. And so I'm going to hop around here a little bit, but one of the things that's really frustrating about the kind of the general culture of club volleyball is that we're expected to call each team a name. And so when we go to a tournament, the somewhere between 7 to 12 athletes that happen to be on said tournament are the ones that are a part of a team. And we hate that. I cannot tell you how much I hate that because ultimately I don't think there's that much of a difference between our 18th team and our 10th teams. That is something that just is not successful for us to have different standards for them. Now, whether it's a height, athleticism, experience, just overall changes between those athletes, yes, there are differences, but the standards that we expect from them of being kind humans, being tolerant, giving grace to others, doing things the right way, shaking hands with people, saying please and thank you, that is irrelevant of whether you're 10, you're 18, you're 34 like I am at the time of this video, or you're a parent or an athlete that's aspiring to be here. We really want to make sure that this one concept, one team, one club, one way, transcends anything as small as whether we're on the ones team or the fours, the 12s or the 18s. It doesn't matter. And we want to make sure that we're always dictating that towards our families. And that goes immediately into our coaches. The coaches have the same responsibility of no matter what team they coach at United, therefore they coach all of them. And there's different things that kind of go through that are even more long-winded than this email family manual kind of goes through some of those responsibilities. It also talks about kind of what we view the coaches as from a role perspective. One of my mentors is Trent Sorensen. He's the associate head coach at SMU Volleyball. And he actually gave me this where the definition of a coach is a vehicle to deliver people from where they are to where they need to go, which they couldn't have gotten to on their own. And so that's really viewed as an old classical definition of a stagecoach. But I really loved learning that definition from him of like, we are simply the vehicle to take people from where they are to where they want to be. I don't think that there's a better way to talk about what a coach can be, especially acknowledging it's where that player wants to be. Now, may not be able to get them there. There has never been a 5 foot tall middle blocker at Nebraska in the history of their program. So there are some things, volleyball, physicality, skills, morals, ethical reasons why people can or can't achieve their dreams. But our goal is to have honest conversations with those players and help them or families in general and try to help them achieve their goals and dreams. And I think when all of our coaches get on board with that, regardless of the team or the level that they coach, I think we have a really special team coming or a special thing coming, excuse me. For athletes is a similar expectation. We have had problems with athletes here at United and frankly my entire career of athletes having desires for great results, great validation, great recognition without having a great work ethic. One of my all-time favorite human beings to watch within coaching is Bill Walsh, the late and great football coach. And he used to talk about how champions act like champions before they actually become champions. And with that piece in mind, we have that same expectation for our athletes. Getting them to lean into those things and standardize the process is going to be a big deal for that. It's really not our choice of what it takes to be great in athletics. It's regardless of whether it's volleyball, whether it's, again, the youngers, the olders, or whether they've done it a little or a lot. Greatness requires a level of buy in, investment, and sacrifice that is just not seen in other walks of life. As much as we want to make sure we are process oriented, like ultimately the results matter. And there's a reason we put the scoreboard up. There's a reason we drive across the state and country to go to these tournaments, and it's to see who's better. And in order to really see that, we have to put in the work ahead of time. And whether that's on the court or off the court, whether that's at the kitchen table in front of the film, trying to put highlights together for recruiting, or whether that's in the weight room or in practice, it doesn't matter. but there's work that needs to be done, and making sure that athletes understand that to try to understand the difference between where they are and where they want to go. That education piece is the biggest thing for us. And finally, is talking about the kind of the role of the families. And I don't think we can overstate how important families are in the process of these athletes getting their goals. Ultimately, you guys as families do so much more than we do as coaches. Best case scenario, if we have a 3-day tournament and 3 practices a week, we're looking at somewhere around 24 hours in a week where we get to interact with the kids. And trust me, they feel the fatigue of listening to our voices, just as some of you will within this phone call. Some of you will be burned out of the messaging that we have, especially if you're in year 3 of this. And this is a similar speed to what you've had. One of the things that we look at, we need to go repeatedly to figure out what's going on. So the big piece that we want to really pay attention to is for you to make sure that you are supporting their teams, not just your athletes and the program at all times. And first and foremost, that comes through with families supporting the coaches, even in decisions that you may not agree with. I think the most common problem that we see within athletics that really takes away from an athlete's opportunities in the short term and the long term is when families interject themselves in between the role between a coach and a player. Whether you agree or disagree with what we say or do, whether you think your player is right or wrong, validating some of those behaviors and not leading them back to the coach is the number one recipe for disaster. And we openly talk about there are things that we're going to do wrong. But I think that the hope is that you as families never validate your athletes' concerns or problems with the coach without leading them back to the athlete. For us, we feel like complaining is one of the most negative and toxic things we can do to have a great team environment. And we're defining that by being negative without pursuing a solution. And so whether that's you doing it or allowing your athletes to do it, I think parents in the past would be surprised at how often most of our coaches will condemn some of that conversation. So, or just leave the conversation themselves as they kind of see complaining behavior. So our hope is that we are choosing positivity in all communications. We're giving grace. We are, again, refusing to affirm all negative thoughts or behavior. Like, we cannot do that. We cannot allow that behavior or mental weakness out of the athletes in order for them to go find their dreams. It's not someone else's responsibility. It's not someone else's fault. The buck stops here with us as families and coaches and leaders. And when an athlete is struggling with something, instead of blaming someone else or blaming circumstance, trying to teach them a level of ownership and understanding and acceptance of failure as a learning point. And ultimately, the time that you spend with your athletes supersedes what we do. And we know there's a lot at school and work and things like that, but you are the biggest influence in their lives by far. And therefore, we have the highest expectation of how you shape the way they see things. So those are kind of the main roles we have here. I did briefly also want to touch base on recruiting. It's something that is a really big focus for a lot of our athletes. And so going in from year 1 to year 2, we have used sports recruits at Ball Time, and we anticipate doing that again. Ball Time was purchased by Huddle. I've not loved the experience of using Huddle from year 1 into year 2. We haven't figured out entirely if that's the platform that we want to use for this year. So I wanted to keep some of that information up simply because we felt like the best experience we had was year 1 with Ball Time, and that has not been an improvement from going to Huddle. We have some pretty lengthy meetings with them, both at United and with League One Volleyball as a whole. But until we kind of see what's going on there, that's a big deal. And one of the other things that we're doing is Lauren Hansen and myself are really shifting into these head recruiter roles. Additionally, any coach that's representing our athletes will have a massive portion of that. But ultimately, that really goes through there. Another common question we have a lot is fundraising. And so, what's going on now? We use Snap Raise in the past year, Red Whale fundraising. We're looking to do more of those kind of moving forward. We're looking at doing some things of individual sales of candles, things like that, but also now in our expansion and kind of some of the things I'll touch base on here of other opportunities for families to work off club dues or work here around the facility, but for camps, clinics, tournaments, other things to try and help ease that burden for families. So it's a big piece of what we're trying to do in addition to the financial aid piece. I don't quite have that information ready to go, but one of the things we will send out with the email here. And the last piece in kind of shifting gears is going to be this family manual. So you can for sure take a QR code right now. Honestly, it's not that big a deal. It's going to be attached to the link in the email that comes with this. And I'm actually going to shift over to it. But there's a very, very large document that I've been accused of being the captain of the term word limit for. So that has basically everything and a lot of the reference points that I have. So for me, the big piece that we kind of shift into when we look at these family manuals is looking through some of our sponsors, looking through some of the different things. So I'm going to go ahead and share that out with everyone as well. Within the actual table of contents or things here, we have some different things about the club. So I do believe this document is just at about 27 pages. We will have more as things go in here as far as the contact list that needs to be updated with our staff and staffing assignments and things like that. So I'm not going to touch on this a ton. I will say as I scroll through this, some of the different things that we've already kind of addressed on one-way culture. some of the things that we expect of our athletes kind of going through this. A lot of these different things are some timeless principles I've had from different stops that I've had, and just in openly talking about some of the things that we have for you. So if there's ever questions, things like that, especially within the recruiting document of kind of what are some of the different things and definitions that we see, what is going on with some of the recruiting pieces as that really kind of changes the landscape of volleyball. There's some club rules in here as well, but mostly it's going to come down to these role expectations. So we talked about this a little bit as far as what that goes through, but the actual kind of portion of this on pages 18, 19, 20, and 21 are going to be the things that are required, as well as a player and family code of conduct. So basically, pages 18 to 23 are something that we will print and ask athletes to sign before the first practice. Some of the different things are the expectations of committing to give direct feedback or criticism of the athlete's performance and never the athlete, being demanding, not demeaning, some of these different things. Like these are the commitments that we want to make sure are public. Not only you know what the coaches are committing to, but the coaches know what you're committing to as athletes and coaches as well and families. So we just hope that this ability to be transparent with these things supersedes some of the things that happens from kind of the chatter of who we are, what we do, and goes on to make that a little simpler. So we also have some things in here as far as like travel guides, different fitness and nutrition guidelines. So really hoping that that's going to be the biggest thing to separate us. So all of that's available for you to read. I think the last kind of thing that I think of is what's kind of coming down the pipelines and changes. So attached as well has been a Google sheet. Again, everything you're seeing from me is coming out of Google. It's my cross to bear, so to speak, of the things that we do. I'm really looking at kind of what the updates are for the 2026 and 2027 season. So this is not just speaking to our new athletes, but also to our returning ones. And one is a new kind of club organization structure, and specifically with our coaching. When we've done coaching assignments right now, we have looked to name the ones coaches of our elites teams, the head coaches specifically, as being kind of a program lead, so to speak. And so the goal is for them to have this primary role of seeing what's going on. So as I'm coaching 18s, my responsibility is to be in contact and mentoring the 18s players and coaches all the way through the age group. Now, obviously, I'm going to spend the most amount of time with the team that I am coaching. Like that is my primary focus from a coaching standpoint. But when something happens with our 18-2s that isn't making sense to them, that they are struggling with the logistics of, my job is to be the first point of contact, not to go to somebody else, but hey, we're struggling with the rotation. What is the itinerary that we should really look at? What is the parking? What is the things like that? Me not necessarily having those answers, but being the one to go to them and help them find that within the United staff and being that person, dictating questions or kind of resolution finding activities for families on any of those teams is kind of then the goal. The second thing that we're doing within that is we're shifting all of our coaches, not just those coaches, to hourly pay. And that may not seem like a big deal, but as any of you are salary employees at times, if you ever do the horrific math of what a stipend approach is for an hourly pay, I highly recommend not doing that as someone who is a salaried employee and looking at the time we put into this. But ultimately, we led the state in coaching compensation in year one and year two for what we're aware of. And even then, though, I think coaches end up not having a great hourly rate of what they're doing and even dropping below minimum wage on a week by week basis just due to the tournaments. A 3-day tournament with 3 practices the week prior, we're looking at 24 hours. And if those aren't adjusted from a week to week basis, I just don't think that's taking care of our coaches. And we provide things like, again, I think you all know, like we take care of their travel. We take care of a per diem allowance that they get for any of those travel days. And that's worked into the eventual fees that families provide, but making sure that they are taken care of so they have the best path to retention. Ultimately, the number one way that we're going to be great here is retention of athletes, families, and coaches. Because as they build in their skills and do a great job, we assume that they will do a great job moving forward again. And it's something I am so passionate about making sure we improve that on. And the last bit has been kind of the new role. So one of our coaches we've added, Casey Rewerts, a college volleyball alumni from Drake and UNI respectively, came over here from Six Pack as she's relocated to the Iowa City area. She's joined our coaching staff of 151 Elite as one of the co-head coaches, but also is joining our strength and conditioning staff in conjunction with Emily Thorbeck. And so we're really excited to see her kind of help grow that piece. And while it is fluid right now, that is really a passion point for her. I think ultimately she does have the goal of coaching as a college strength and conditioning coach at some point. And we're just really excited to see if we can be, part of her journey or, potentially be a fun stop for her and her future where maybe this is a better fit. So I could use the help from you of making sure she has a great time and loves this more than there, but that's ultimately out of our control. I hope that we have her for many years to come because already of just being in here for a couple of days, she has certainly added to the energy in the gym. She's been a fantastic influence on the girls and on the staff in the short term. Phil Kramer, who's been actually with us since January of 2026 when he's joined, has joined as an administrative supervisor. So he's going to help me at the admin level of one, shaping what we're doing from a programming perspective, specifically with tournament programming, staffing, logistics, things like that, getting some of our vendors done, but also as kind of our overall guru of managing the army of spreadsheets and things I have, but honoring some quality control things. What's going on with our rotations? What's going on with our win loss? Are the teams trending in the right direction? Are we sending them to the right tournaments? Currently, he and I are looking through the 25 and 26 tournament schedule to verify what were the good tournament assignments that we set teams to, what was kind of the level. And as we are, in our opinion, relatively upgrading some of the rosters from year two to year three, will we expect to see an increased win loss perspective for those teams as they go to their future tournaments? And the last one is Caitlin Smith. Saving the best for last is she has been, you want to talk about a partner in crime here. I don't know that we survive year one, year two, or have any positive momentum whatsoever in year three if Caitlin wasn't on the roster. I think there's a lot of people, coaches, admin, families, players that have contributed to being here at United. I don't think anyone can be stated as more valuable than Caitlin has been. One is just being a general kind of wrangler for the wildness and crazy ideas that I have, but two, Caitlin has just been a workhorse and understands the cultural goals that I've set for the club in ways that I don't think anyone else mirrors. And while many people have done a great job, I think Caitlin has been exceptional. And I think that's something for her. So she's shifting into this role of managing our camps, clinics, and youth programming. And I think right now, when we look at what we've been successful at United, it's mostly been on the recruiting front. And we found great athletes and brought them in, and we've trained them a little, but not a ton. And I think what we need to look at is, okay, how are we getting 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, all the way to 18s? How do we put something together that is welcoming for an athlete to do it at an appropriate pace, at an appropriate development cycle, to making sure that they're really doing a great job? And I'm really excited for her to do that. And then one of the last things within our coaching bits is we have spent a lot of time and resources in developing a coaching course moving forward. So my plan is to have coaches have a bit of a mandatory kind of training plan to understand what it is to coach here at United and making sure we have a better quality control. One of the feedback things that we looked at is if we as an admin group do a phenomenal job and the athletes do a great job and they get along great, and the coach does a poor job, almost everybody, including the admin, has a poor experience with that team. Whereas if the athletes are kind of mediocre to each other and they're not really great in the culture, they're good, not great. The admin is not present, but the coach does the greatest job. That's where teams still can have a great experience. And ultimately, we'd like it to be great with players, great with families, coaches, and admin. Like that's certainly the goal that we're aspiring towards. But we've really looked at making sure that if our coaches are in a great space, the team will be in a great space. And I think that's the best way to kind of serve our families best. So, and trying to build that out to teach them on logistical things, recovery, training, tactics, tactical training, technical training, managing itineraries, speaking to parents, early communication, things like that. So our goal is to make sure that those things become more standardized moving forward. I was already kind of teasing this, but within this Google sheet that you're seeing right now, for those of you with a keen eye, the bottom left, there's a tab that says the master planner. That is a similar document to what we've had before. I will get in that as I'm done with these updates for you. But those are the things that we're really trying to look towards. And ultimately, that schedule is available. We'll kind of tease into that just to show you briefly. So right now, this is the daily practice schedule, kind of what we have. We don't have things already in here booked in, but showing people what we have and regular bookings. As we move towards this, we have some ideas of none of these are finalized. We haven't made these decisions yet, but ultimately looking at what's going to be the best way to do this. Our goal is to keep our teams training of one team per court, occasionally two. Obviously, we're going to want to get in scrimmages, but right now, the teams we anticipate offering, we do have enough room for everybody. And we have announced some of these coaches already. Some of them we have not. We will announce those as we can. The biggest thing about announcing coaches and coach assignments is really going to come down to some compliance things. Kenzie Martin, Brian Yale are ones with some NCAA rules that they're going to have to follow. High school compliance as well. Our coaches needing to make sure that we assign them to a team based off of what's going on, so that way we never want to restrict a player based off of the coaches at that team, therefore an athlete can't play on that team. So we've got these that we're kind of building through, and some of the rest of them even now looking through what the practice schedule is, but also just aligning to you guys that as you scroll through these documents, we have a tentative schedule here. And I'm going to kind of pause here for a minute as I talk about this. But when I talk about the tentative schedule specifically, our goal is that when we get back to the point of these teams being finalized, to send out another conflict survey, where we're going to ask you guys, where are your conflicts? What are the vacations? What are the multi-sport things? What's going on as a problem for you with confirmation or dance or competitive baton twirling for some of the teams? So that way we can make sure that the most amount of kids are at the most amount of practices. Ultimately, that's kind of the goal. And I think the biggest frustration pieces are when those things things don't happen. So really shifting into that for you all is a big focus for us. And then one of the final things we're really looking towards as well is looking to try and make sure that those are customizable. Leaning past that, we also within that document are showing here what the estimated fees are. And so those are going to fluctuate greatly based off of what you guys give us feedback on. And really what we're kind of looking towards within those are going to be separating those into three different buckets. Now, one of the things we were told when Iowa tax law changes and updates that we had at the federal level required us to charge sales tax due to a myriad of reasons, but we were able to talk through some compliance with some accountants and kind of shift that to really lower that burden. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to split that overall total cost that we're kind of estimating right now for you guys into three buckets. And so the first one is going to be the uniform package. Now, there's nothing we can do about this. That is a sale that needs to be having sales tax on, but by splitting that off from the cost, one, it's a part of the total package that we have in there, but that is the only taxable thing that we would be able to assess to you. The second thing is then splitting off travel fees. I think by separating those out, we're able to either find cost savings or find other opportunities for the families individually to expand the schedule. Obviously, if we have athletes that are a big basketball consideration, trying not to schedule those over state basketball would probably be advisable. There's certain things that kind of we can't change where the tournaments are located, but we're trying to make sure that those are going to be something. And so if we end up removing something, I would like that to reflect in a cost savings for our families. If we end up adding something, then I would like that to be something that that individual team is assessed that cost, not something that the entire club is hitting. And then the third one is club fees. By shifting those off, one, it's going to lower the initial amount of costs and things that you guys are going to have to hit up front, but it also will then allow us to have more flexibility with some of the other things that you want to do, where it's not just kind of this square peg round hole thing that I think the status quo of the overall the Iowa region has had. And so I'm hoping that by doing those to you and having a more planned open schedule for you all, that is much more customizable and family friendly. The last kind of two things we're going to touch on is the construction updates. So in our current schedule, I think you've all heard it, or if you've seen the things on social media or just in general, your kids are reflecting on how hot it is in the gym right now. Like we are certainly a work in progress with this expansion. So in the next 14 days or so, we will start to tear down the gym. We will pull up courts. We're planning to pull down walls. If you've been around, we've already been putting up steel for the expansion and putting up some of the roof products. So at some point, we will be shifting into getting the expansion done. And at a minimum, we're going to be at 10 courts. Right now, it looks like we could get to 12 with training, but probably 10 for competition. I haven't really figured out what the exact layout's going to be until we really get through of, frankly, the big steel beams are not able to be moved. That's the hardest thing is like they go where they have to go. The second piece from that is going to be that with the more courts we have here, we are shifting into a full tournament business. We will have that coming. So that's kind of the other things that I talked about from a savings or a fundraising aspect for parents and families to be able to work off some of those club dues and have the opportunities to do that, just to do that, or even just get frankly paid cash. I shouldn't say cash, but get paid hourly. We do have many athletes and families currently on the payroll that we have here, and we're looking to continue that for those that want to work and spend time around here. There's things with construction projects. There's things with actually logistics of running a tournament, and they're not glorified jobs. They're not sitting here on the laptop and stuff a lot of times. We have had that a lot with tryouts, but it is cleaning, it is trash, it is toilets, it is helping us move things. And we've had volunteers for parents to do a lot of that stuff. We've had paid employees as well and trying to figure out how to do that. The other thing that comes with the expansion is going to be the more space. And I know that seems really redundant to kind of say, but opening up more lessons and training times and more solo court times for our teams. And we're really excited about how that can amplify what we're doing with our teams relative to frankly what we've done in the past and kind of lengthening the lead that we've had over our counterparts here in the rest of Iowa. And then kind of our last little bit that we've talked about is with the expansion of space that we have, we are looking to eliminate position specific training practices completely. I think one, we've already known that players want to play and there needs to be a playing component of that. For me, in looking at some of the skill development things, if we're not finding a way to apply it in a relatively timely manner, I just don't know that there's a good stickiness for, so to speak, of how players are going to take that absorption and actually, take it into their games. Ultimately, we want players to get better at volleyball, not to get better at volleyball drills. We want players to get better on the court, not better at paying coaches to be on the court with them. And so our hope is that by shifting that skill specific or position specific training into practices already into the practice plan, we think we can see a higher absorption rate of some of that data. And frankly, I don't see a point of us having athletes in the gym without having some section of servant paths training repetition and setter tutoring working every single day that we're in the gym. And whether that is a middle working on that skill of working on serve and pass and setting, or whether that is a setter working on repping out with her players or individually on the targets, I don't think that there's a difference. And I think that's one of the big things that we're looking for as far as progressing the teams moving forward. So with that in mind, I kind of wanted to share this stuff with you and go through this pretty quickly. Some of the logistics steps and things we have are coming out later, but ultimately those are the big things that we've been focused on moving forward. So we are not finished with rosters. Even though we've gotten out, I think, over 350 offers at this point, as we sit here on July 11th, we are seeing a lot of movement. So the plan is for me to close down this recording, start to, modify, get ready to upload to YouTube. But while that's happening, I mean, it is more smile and dial and connecting with families and working on some of the logistics. A lot of you have, been told you've received an offer and can't find it because OCS seems to only go to spam folders. So as much as we can try to manage that, our staff is working really aggressively to do that. I know, or at least some of us are. I know Caitlin's up trying to ball it out and get some cash playing at the Wapaka boat ride right now, as well as with some of our other coaches. But ultimately, I think that's the thing that we're trying to shift towards. And the hope is that we're ready to move. We're back and better than ever as soon as we can here for club season, but also getting ready to support you guys over this fall. For me, this is the weirdest thing where it feels like the season ends and the new season starts in less than a blink of an eye. And today, selfishly, I got to sleep in until about 11 a.m., which is the first in weeks, months, whatever, and I needed it. But it's weird now that things are slowed down. I'm the only one in this building right now as I send this, unless somebody's out there in the practice gyms getting reps that I don't know about. But we are really, really aggressive in trying to figure out a way to better serve you guys and hoping that we're as a staff, as families, as athletes, as coaches, trying to prioritize using this slower time for us to make sure we're setting the table for the best year ever. So just really wanted to get as much information as I could out to you all and get a chance to shift into that next season officially here on our end. So thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this. I know I talk a lot. I'm trying to go as fast as I can just to make it really efficient with your time. I will be sure to attach the links to all of those documents, this recording, and the transcript from the recording as well for if you have any questions. The best way to get a hold of us for any of this, to get a hold of the entire staff, is always going to be info at iowaunitedvb.com. But you can always call, text, email any of us on the staff for any questions. So hope you guys have a fantastic day and great weekend, and go United.